Hey, hey, M365 Nation, Harry here, and this is a special show. We're sitting here in late July 2019 with our regular contributor, Frank Ohlhorst out of New York. And Frank, I'm looking at the CompTIA ChannelCon conference page, and as I speak, we are 5 days, 20 hours, and 18 minutes away from the start of the event, August 5th through 7th at the Bellagio. Frank, for you and me, it's a chance to get together. I think we probably see each other half a dozen times a year. IBM back in, I believe it was February, and so on and so on and so on. I think we'll might find ourselves at Spice World in Austin in late September, that kind of thing. But more importantly, we have the CompTIA ChannelCon event coming up, and a couple of questions for people that might not really understand ChannelCon and CompTIA. Frank, what is CompTIA and what is ChannelCon? Let's talk specifics.
Well, CompTIA specifically is an organization to kind of promote the education and enablement of IT professionals. And CompTIA has been around kind of forever. And they really kind of struck their name out there when they got involved in the whole IT certification business.
They did.
And their certifications are quite popular. I mean, I have, I believe, all of them at this point in time, although it'll be time to update them soon because of the changes that they're doing. But, CompTIA made a realization, I guess it was about 2 years ago, how important the channel is to IT at large. And they went down a path of promoting channel enablement and conferences and working groups and things like that that help channel partners of the various vendors out there, especially those that are selling cloud services or managed services. They came together to create, kind of this reactive organization to help these folks grow their businesses, and they've done it with kind of a very different flavor than the traditional players out there. Like, you look at CRN, Channel Pro, Channel Partner Insight, Channel Futures, all of these channel publications that are more about
a lot of them
that are more about the news that impacts the channel and less about the running of your channel business and the spreading of the best practices to make yourself successful. So they're kind of a unique role, and it's very complementary to many of those publications out there.
Yeah, I would agree. CompTIA tends to get along with everybody. And Frank, to your point, the ChannelCon conference, I guess I go every year. I don't always agree with the venue for a late July, early August show. For whatever reason, it's always in very hot places or humid places, so I don't always agree with that. But they have done a good job, and I would add a third leg to the stool of advocacy. So they are involved in some H-1B1 issues and some different Washington, D.C. fly-ins. What they don't do, Frank, with all due respect, is this is not a technical conference like my expectations would be for Black Hat, right, in the hardcore hacker community or this or that. And CompTIA ChannelCon, they don't hold themselves out to be a deeply technical conference. Is that a fair and respectful assessment?
That's very, very fair. They don't, do deep dives into the technology, but they do kind of a deep dive into the opportunities the technology can present.
Yeah, I would agree. So we're going to be there. And I'll speak for myself and then tell me what your plans are. So SMB Nation, and I'm bringing my son, Harry Jr., a thinly disguised succession planning effort. But succession planning is always a little bit dicey because you're making a big assumption a offspring wants to be involved in your line of work at a future date. That's why we have the amazing Jennifer Hallmark over in the radio control room who really runs things. But we're going to be in the booth, and we're going to be doing interviews, and we're going to be telling stories. So for example, Frank, last year, I think CompTIA does a really good job of attracting younger people to this conference. There's the high school students, the college kids, the vets, the younger military personnel. I've interviewed all those. I expect that again. I will certainly be doing a check-in with some of our community sponsors and vendors. I don't know if I will find myself at many lectures, Frank, because I am stacking up a lot of interviews. Plus, I have a booth on the floor. So maybe that's the handoff to you. Will you be attending panels and lectures? And what are you going to do next week in Vegas?
Well, besides get drunk and gamble, that's kind of an inside joke between me and Harry because he knows I don't drink and I don't gamble.
There you go.
But I will be attending some of the panel discussions. I might even be participating in some. It really depends upon, who the panelists are. But I'm looking to garner some information when it comes to where they're predicting this wonderful industry of ours is heading and where they're going to kind of identify what the future opportunities are. There's a lot of change going on in the industry.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of these break-fix guys out there evolving into MSPs. You've got a lot of MSPs specializing in either security or analytics or elements like that. And then you've got this whole ecosystem of security services coming up, where it's starting to become finally, I guess, iterated into different practices, whether it's, the white hat guys, the white hat hackers, or the threat hunters, or the top tier analysts. We're seeing a lot of change there. And I think we're going to have to see both the vendors and organizations like CompTIA develop better practices for training folks in those areas, and then being able to measure how well those folks are trained. Some of the other trends that I'm seeing out there that are of interest is the whole concept around privacy. I mean, we saw what GDPR did last year, and now we've got on the books laws out of California like CPPA, and I think there's 14 or 15 other states that are getting involved in this privacy legislation. I think that's going to have a big impact on those that service IT and those that work in IT. And I think that is going to be kind of a talking point at the event. Then, of course, you're going to have all the vendors pitching their latest wares and services, of course, from, the newest, greatest DVD burner to
That's an inside joke, but I'm catching what you're throwing.
to new edge protection devices, whether they're virtual appliances or physical devices that are going to be put at the edge of networks to better protect them. And then, of course, I think we're going to see a bit of talk about, the whole software-defined market, whether it's software-defined wide area networks or software-defined storage and things like that. All of these should resonate with the channel players out there because they all bring forth services opportunity. So I think that's going to be quite interesting to look at.
Well, Frank, what I'm looking forward to doing, and I don't know if I will, but between me and you, and it doesn't leave this room, other than we're broadcasting. But, Douglas Green, longtime publisher of Telcom Reseller out of the Portland, Oregon area, said it best a few years ago when VoIP was a huge coverage area for us, late 2000s. And he said, conferences should be disturbing. You should go to a conference and be disturbed. You know what I mean? A little bit. The speakers should put you back on your heels occasionally and really make you think things through. And what I want to see from CompTIA, here's been my experience with any trade association at their annual event, is it's a little bit of proponent activity. It's a little bit of rah-rah. We're doing great. The sectors expand. The universe is infinite. And then yesterday, Jenny and I were on an analyst call with someone we respect that shared one of the Microsoft authorized training centers that was held up sort of as the partner of the year less than a handful of years ago, has seen a decline in revenue from 50 million down to 2.5 million because training has been devalued with Microsoft making much of it free. Frank, think about it. Boeing doesn't have to send a system engineer to a $2,500 a week class in the old MCSE days, when you can go to LinkedIn Learning or the Microsoft Partner Portal and get it for free or low cost, right? And that's a reality. And so I want to see CompTIA. I understand their role is to have excitement and an enthusiasm, but I'd still like to see more transparency in the conversation about automation and technology and the devaluation of some of the service providers' business models, and what the heck are we going to do with it, right? And Huey Lewis said, "I want a new drug." Right? So I intend.
Is that a pitch for your 420 site?
There you go. But I kind of, as I'm able, I kind of want to either raise my hand and ask uncomfortable questions, or write some uncomfortable words about, there's some of our brethren that have seen revenue declines because of the shift in the supply curve. It's the bottom line, right? I just want to have an open forum about it. Like, what the heck are we going to do? Now, that said, I don't want to end on a negative note, because of the organizations that are doing a great job, I think, with training content, curriculums, delivery, and certifications. I think CompTIA has stood the test of time in that realm. Go, Frank.
You're correct. I mean, things with training does have to change, and training as a model to make profits off of has to evolve. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned LinkedIn Learning. I read an article, I think it was a week or so ago, about in the state of California, that California is no longer going to allow in their libraries LinkedIn Learning to be offered. The reason being is that they discovered that LinkedIn is sharing information about those taking the courses with recruiters without the knowledge of those taking the courses. And it's a potential privacy violation, but it brings up a different issue. Your business sends you to get trained and to use LinkedIn Learning, and whether you go to a library or wherever you do it, and you're working for a company, you go and you take this course, and all of a sudden you start getting job offers from their competitor. Now, that doesn't bode well for companies wanting to promote training for their own internal staff. And on the flip side, it also brings up the issue of kind of violating implied privacy by attending training. So, I mean, that's an interesting issue, and I'm actually going to be writing about that over at dice.com in the very near future. Following that idea along those lines, that even when training's free, there is a potential cost to it. And
well, certainly time.
Yeah, not only time, but other costs to it. How well put together is free training as opposed to courses that have been developed by those that are experts in a subject and experts in education. Now, let me give you another example. There's an organization out there called Skillsoft that does a lot of IT training. And they've kind of mastered the concept of applying agility to training in the point of using micro learning, where you're able to, on your own terms, take particular courses in small digestible segments, and then actually practice in a simulated environment what you've learned before you move on to the next piece of micro learning. It's a good way to build a skill set with real world ideologies behind it. Now we can go even one step further and look at how other training elements are evolving. Cisco has completely revamped some of their development net training to really embrace the DevOps model, and they're talking about it from the point of view is that what they've always said, that the network is the computer, and they're looking to build on that ideology. As opposed to training you on a Cisco appliance, they're going to train you on how to work with software-defined technologies on the internet, in the cloud, and the network, and develop the skill sets to not only use Cisco products, but also other products that adhere to those things. And finally, CompTIA is evolving its training.
Yeah.
Their new Linux Plus certification, as a matter of fact, is very much based upon the networking ideology behind Linux Plus and how you deploy Linux in the cloud and solve problems with Linux. Not what all the individual, gizmos and bells are, but also the idea of the practical application of the technology. I think we're going to see this happen across the industry. And I think when it comes to training, a lot of this evolution is being driven by the needs of the channel. We see such shortages of qualified employees in the channel, especially for MSPs and firms that specialize in security, that they can't go along the traditional methodologies of, yes, I have this piece of paper that says I'm an expert. They need that piece of paper to be backed by real world training and things that can offer an advantage immediately. They're not like an enterprise that, can say, okay, this employee needs a month to get up to speed. No, they need an employee that tomorrow is bringing benefits to the company.
So Frank, and I made a couple notes. We're going to double click into that whole topic on privacy and training and so on in our August interview, but let me wrap on ChannelCon. So I'm on their page and they have a 1, 2, 3, 4 about why attend. Number 1, connections. We used to call that Hallway 101. Number 2, community meetings and forums. Number 3, the vendor fair. And then number 4, they're saying the awards, the member of the year recognition, so on. Frank, what they don't have is number 5, which I actually do respect Microsoft for at their events, would be the on-site hands-on lab and on-site certification testing. I'm not seeing that here. That's fine. My expectations are managed. But here's an interesting infographic. I'll read off a couple stats because I've always felt this, and this is important, you guys, the demographic of the attendees. So 31% are technology solution providers. So those are the doers. Those are the MSPs and the partners. Those are actually people that work. Then you have 7% industry associates, which is what Frank and I would be coming in as analysts and my community and so on. And you can argue how hard we really work. Frank, you have 46% vendor and distributor. And let me key in on that number, and there's another other category of 16% kind of out there, but the 46%, here's my experience with ChannelCon. I've always felt it was half partner and half vendor. Like, I mean, literally, just my visual was 50-50. I've now got the numbers that it's 46% vendor staff and distributors and 31% MSPs. And you could argue that they blew out the trade show hall. They have too many vendors. But, I've come to like this show because at number 1, my expectations are managed, right? That I'm not surprised when I go there that there's a snit load of vendors and staff. Number 2, it's good to see the vendor-to-vendor relationships and my own relationships with vendors enhanced over the 3 days because, dude, they are all there. I mean, I could walk around and talk to them, okay? You know what I'm trying to get at is there's a sensitivity in the conference business and technology that too many vendors spoil the show. CompTIA arguably has too many vendors, but Frank, they're upfront about it.
Yes, they are. And, it's, a truth be told issue is that many of these events exist to make those connections, to put vendors in front of potential leads and to take the other attendees and introduce them to something that could be either a new line of revenue or a potential solution that they could sell. So the idea is to bring these two audiences together. Now, you take the average solution provider, they deal with multiple vendors. So
right.
If you look at it from that point of view, maybe the ratio should be 1 solution provider per 3 vendors. Now, if we look a little bit further into the past, when I was involved with CRN and setting up the exchange shows, those were all about vendors making connections with potential, resellers.
Right.
Those were what those shows were designed to do. So it was to promote the technology that the vendors offer in the context of the channel, so that what we used to call resellers can build a business model around it. CompTIA is kind of embracing that as well, because at ChannelCon it is all about being able to grow your business or to venture into new opportunities. And of course, you need a strong vendor commitment to make that a possibility. It's also a real good opportunity for, Joe Blow reseller to go and shake hands with a vendor that's, supported them very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that said, Frank, let's go ahead and wrap on this so we can get this posted up so the viewers can keep their eyes open for you and me. And I'm assuming you're bringing your iguana or lizard to the desert to eat locusts.
No, he runs the office while I'm gone. He answers the phones and everything.
All right. See you next week, Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.